There we go. Okay, so we're speaking with some alumni here with liberal arts degrees, and getting some information about where their degrees fit in terms of their career journeys. Angela, you've just told us about some of your work today, and I'm assuming in the background there, we're looking at one of the restaurants?
Yes, this is Gusto 101, which is on Portland Street in the King West area. And this is kind of the restaurant that really launched the multiple restaurants that we have now. Originally, the oldest restaurant is in Yorkville. It's called Trattoria Novosa at the corner of Yorkville and Bel Air. And that had been around for 16 years before launching this one. And then everything's kind of gone from there. We have 2 restaurants in LA as well now.
Wow.
Yeah.
And I think your story is really instructive, especially for students who, may have some idea of where they want to go after they graduate, to kind of see that like your career path can go in some pretty unexpected places. And I love that, you were writing for the student newspaper as an activity, I guess, that you're doing outside of the context of your formal courses, but actually ended up playing a significant role in where you ended up going in terms of a publishing career after graduation.
Exactly. I think that one of the things that I can see now, in retrospect, is that it's really around you're gaining skills that can be used in several different ways in different careers and different industries, and not feeling that you have to like stick to one vision, but kind of being more in the flow of how things unfold in your life and in your career. And so just being open, I think, has led me to where I am now. But originally having, the knowledge and the practical skills that I was getting at university, and just like the overall interpersonal skills and other things that may not be monetized in the same way, but are actually very, very helpful and useful to being a well-rounded person that people are interested in working with and people are interested in hiring. And so I just say never think that what you're learning, even on a social level, isn't something that in the future will be important to your overall presentation and just like value that you can offer and contribute to different businesses or your own business if you choose to go in that direction.
Yeah, that's a really important point to remember. I think you can lose sight of it a little bit as you're in the thick of courses and exams and assignments, just trying to piece together exactly everything that you're learning and what it's contributing to and where you may go with that afterward. Ayesha, I wanted to ask you, you've got a background in public policy and in philosophy as well. Can you tell us a bit about where you see or saw your undergraduate studies fitting into your career development?
Yeah, thank you, Sean. So I started working full-time very early in my career. I was lucky. One summer I was looking for a job like every other student. And I think I was late getting started on my search. So I didn't get the typical retail or banking role that I was looking for. I ended up with a company called Fidelity Investments for an 8-week contract doing a project for employee benefits. And so I got my start there. And, there was a lot that I was learning in an applied sense. So my education became sort of a way for me to quench my curiosity and for me to really find the context within which we exist really in our society. So that's what I feel public policy and philosophy sort of helped me do. And it's interesting because my parents wanted me to be a doctor when I was young, and I never really thought about what I wanted until it was time for me to go to school. And I was like, oh yeah, this is not what I want to do. So the first degree was very much an exploration of different types of courses. So a lot of business courses, some science, some geography, and then political science. And towards the end, my last semester, I found philosophy. And I fell in love, and I knew I had to continue. So for me, my education was about really growing as a person while I was still engaged very much in the workforce, learning some of those things that related to the areas within which I was working. And organizations train you on some of those things. And so what my education and my exploration allowed me to do was to bring a set of eyes and a perspective and a way of looking and working with people that was very effective. So for me, it was about learning how to be a good problem solver. learning how to really understand what people are saying, because defining a problem, as Alessandro said earlier, philosophy is phenomenal because it really teaches you not just how to write, but also how to listen and how to read and how to really pick out what's important and what the issue is. And so for me, it really contributed to my success. Beyond that, I spent, from one role to the next, I stayed in consulting and business process outsourcing, really focusing on people work. So working with organizations and supporting them on their human resources functions, before I decided to go into industry, and then sort of did that in that context. And very much like Alessandro, I have worked with technology as well, because technology has really shaped how we interact, how things are done, even how we think about things and what we think about and what we don't. And so there is a lot of thought and process and mapping out of things and understanding implications, understanding change, understanding how you work with people if you want something to be successful, that goes into all of that. And so for me, my liberal arts education really made me very effective in being able to do that. And then for the last year and a half, I've been sort of on my own. This is my first time being an entrepreneur, after spending 15 plus years in the corporate world. So, I feel that what I'm creating and the approach that I'm taking is very much informed by my liberal arts education, specifically philosophy. Philosophy means a love of wisdom. And I feel that we can all use, a little bit of that in our lives. And so what I'm creating right now, the way that I am supporting my clients, the way that I work with leaders, it is very much informed by the concepts and by the skills that I have learned through my academic journey at York.
Yeah, that's excellent. And you've been in a whole bunch of different roles in this latest phase. I guess an entrepreneurial phase is quite fascinating to hear about. I also like the point you made at the beginning about finding something you're passionate about for expanding your mind, right? Like your undergraduate education will certainly provide you with a set of skills and competencies after you graduate that can facilitate a career and a career journey over time. But it's also about broadening the kind of person that you're going to be once you graduate and where you're going to go afterward. Domenic, we know, is an excellent kind of person, and I'm excited to hear about his own career journey and what role his undergraduate education may have played in it.
Thanks, Sean. It's interesting. I'm hearing my colleagues on the panel talk about some of the things, and I will say that I worked a number of years in Yorkville, and sort of I know Trattoria del Rosso. So Angela, you bringing that up is quite exciting and interesting. And Ayesha, I think your history around looking for work out of school and trying to find out if that was your career, that's essentially what happened to me. And so it's interesting how people's stories are parallel, and there's 6 degrees of separation. And I think this is one of those experiences. For me, my background, I went into university knowing I wanted an education, but not knowing what I wanted it in. And so in many ways, it was very different than my friend group coming out of high school. And you had folks that were saying, I'm a lawyer, an accountant, a hockey player. Like there was a path and a sort of a vision and a career trajectory. I didn't know that, but what I knew is, being the first one in my family to go and be accepted into university, I knew I wanted to complete it and accomplish that. And so for me, it was important to go through, and I was very open to finding my path within sort of my university days. And so for me, the liberal arts programs allowed me to sort of do a number of things without necessarily being very specialized. And if I look at my experience in political science and mass communications, I think what I got most from it is the ability to problem solve, the ability to communicate effectively. And I don't mean just person to person, but organization to organization, business, customer to business, business to customer, and all of the things that you hear today. Those are some of the foundational pieces that the communications teaches you. And then the art, I think, is being able to debate and being able to debate allows us to hear what others are saying, but also then challenge them in a very respectful and an appropriate way. And so, you know, taking those skills sort of fed me into what was my part-time job at the time, which was with TD. And if you know the retail part of any organization, it's an ability to make a connection with a client, a person on the other side, is really what's going to make you different from the next person, or make a difference in that person's life. And so for me, that's what sparked it, is having those skills that I learned in liberal arts in regards to, you know, understanding, being empathetic, knowing what the other person is trying to communicate and play that back. It sort of, there was a spark that was created, and banking sort of seemed to give me the opportunity to utilize all of the education that I developed at school. And so, you know, my journey is an interesting one, because, you know, I know colleagues, you've heard that others have done various things. I've had the pleasure of working for one organization my entire career, and I think that's a bit of a unicorn there, because I don't think that many in my class, nor others that follow me, have that sort of that ability. But the way I would describe my career to date has been one book, 3 parts, and about 25 chapters. And it speaks to the one book as the one organization I've worked with. The 3 parts are really the 3 parts of the bank that I've worked with, whether it be on the retail side, whether it be in wealth management, or whether it be in the wholesale. And each of those has a very different interaction model, and comes with a very different sort of business expertise required. But it's all the skills that I would have learned in university that have made me sort of successful in what I do today. I think it shows, you know, university gives you the ability to be very to have a curiosity spark, and that's what's happened. And then the 25 is really about, I would say I've had about 25 different roles in my career with the bank. And so, you know, to Alessandro's point, I've had the ability to play and dabble in the technology side. I've had the ability to work in wholesale and sort of understand sort of how wholesale banking and money movement happens. I've had the ability to see retail and how you make an impact in people's lives. And so I think each of those parts has sort of, I've learned as much from working in those as hopefully I've imparted on the people I've come across. But the education I've had has been foundational in creating who I am today.
So Domenic, you made some really interesting remarks about being able to connect with people in your role with TD. And it reminds me of some conversations we've been having in the faculty today, because we're a little bit larger than we were perhaps even when any of you were students. And we include a really wide range of programs, you know, humanities programs like philosophy or history, social science programs like economics and sociology. And then we also have professional programs like human resources management and commerce and disaster and emergency management. We're sitting around trying to think like, what ties us together? What's the identity of a liberal arts and professional studies faculty? And one of the things that we came to was this sense that all of our programs give students an ability to understand people. Whether you're a student in human resources management or you're a student in English and studying Shakespeare, to some degree, you're engaged in an enterprise of trying to understand people better, and to a certain extent, understanding yourself. So I'm curious from your perspective, maybe Alessandro, I'll start with you. What other kinds of liberal arts values do you see being important in your career? And maybe in your current role, do you see those kinds of skills or values being used by others or by yourself in your day-to-day work?
I love that you said understanding people, right? And communicating concepts to people is sort of what I thought of next. So I started off my career with just sort of an idea at a very young age, like how can I turn my love for tech into a job, you know? And then after exploring it, I realized there are so many different avenues I can explore, you know? So as I said, I went to Sheridan first, and that led to a few co-ops. So the first job I had was effectively a job that not a lot of people wanted. I was doing technical support over the phone on the trade floor of RBC Capital Markets. So time was money. You know, people would yell at you if you didn't solve an IT problem quickly. You know, you get a talking to in the back storage closet, you know, and it's like, it really wasn't nice. But for me, it's like, wait, I get to talk tech to people? Like, this is fantastic. I didn't care where it was. You know, the stakes were high. It was great. And, you know, I just tried job after job and more of this talking tech, right? So going to York and taking philosophy really kind of elevated this idea of playing with tech and talking tech with people. So what I found that philosophy did best, or a liberal arts degree, I think generally does this as well, is it allows us to kind of be consultants. Whereas before, you know, I was more of just acting very transactionally. It's like, here's the problem, here's the solution. After, you know, spending 4 years or so at York, you know, studying philosophy and formulating arguments, I really kind of honed in on how to take a technically complex problem and distill it down to an audience that may not be technical. So you've got somebody who is, let's say, a director or a manager or something like that, and they want to understand the problem, but in a way that, you know, is akin to the language that they speak. So doing that translation, doing, you know, almost being a teacher and working by analogy so that they understand where you're coming from, even though you're coming from a very technical place, I think is very important. And it really shows, you know, that degrees in liberal arts are sort of building experts, right? You know, 'cause I think the key component to an expert is being able to talk through a problem at kind of every level. You know, explain it at the base beginner level, but also be able to talk tech with technical people. So I'm happy that I'm confident actually that my degree really did help with this sort of thing.
And I'm glad to learn that you've gone beyond that first co-op role with people yelling at you.
Yeah. Not too far beyond, but I did go beyond it.
Angela, what about in your role? Where do you see liberal arts values or liberal arts skills show up in your day-to-day work or with the people with whom you work?
Well, when I started at York, I actually was majoring in business, and I was taking like economics and these other courses that I realized I didn't love. And so in my second year, that's when I switched to did some soul searching and realized that I always loved English. I always loved, you know, magazines, which kind of led me towards doing a different, you know, a double major in English and mass communications, which was kind of the closest thing that York had at the time to a journalism program. But what I got out of York was a real sense of feeling more confident in what I'm passionate about and being willing to follow that, even if I didn't know exactly where it was going to go. And obviously I got really great skills in storytelling, mainly, you know, being an English major, but also practically working at, you know, the school paper. And I was also an editor, a section editor. So I got to assign stories and work with people and help them bring their creativity forward. And it's funny enough, that's what I became. I became a magazine editor where I was doing the same thing, working with people, inspiring their creativity, being able to communicate the vision for the story so that they could deliver it in the way that I wanted it. I think that storytelling is a big thing for me in my career. Being able to tell the story now of a restaurant, you know, like when someone creating a concept, it's really a story that we're telling people when they walk through the doors, and so they can feel transported. And so I would just say that it was the beginning of my creative, you know, connection, where I started to think less about what was practical, because going into university and doing business, for me, that was like practical. I loved English, but I'm like, I don't want to be an English teacher. So what am I going to do with an English degree? And once I was there, though, I got to see more of what was available. And I was also able to be really clear that I wasn't enjoying, these other courses, and I wanted to be there and enjoy what I was experiencing, enjoy what I was learning. So I think that has followed me outside of university as well. I really do focus on doing things that I love, and things that I'm passionate about, and be less worried about I'm going to make money doing it. And somehow things just start to unfold. And yeah, I've learned to trust my gut at York, and it's made a big difference in where I am today.
Like how you frame storytelling as a kind of fundamental skill that shows up in a bunch of different ways depending on what role you have in an organization or what sector that you're working in. But storytelling does, I think, show up in a lot more places than we might expect beyond just publishing or obvious places where you might think of storytelling. Ayesha, I don't know if these are skills or values that emerge in your career or not, but are there liberal arts skills that you see as especially important in your career?
Yeah, honestly, everything that Alessandro and Angela say, they hold true and they resonate with me for sure. What I'll add to that is, the connection with people. There's a lot that we do, but I think the connection with people, the ability to really, take something that is 100 pages of research and being able to get in front of, a C-suite committee with a 1-pager or a 2-pager, really being able to pick up on those things that truly matter. That was for me an additional piece that really helped me be very successful. When I was in consulting, it's what the clients needed to know. So the research that we did, the data that we collect, being able to really take those 100, 200 pages and being able to create an insightful document that helps make decisions easier. I think that's a critical skill that I definitely credit my philosophy and public policy education for helping me gain that skill. I think the other thing that I would say is intellectual honesty. It's not something that kind of shows up every day, but it's also the ability to sort of not be attached to your ideas and to the solutions, but being able to kind of look at things and say, okay, this has worked and there's a reason why it's worked, but there's something in the context, in the environment, in the world that has changed. And because of that, we need new solutions. And not being attached to those ideas or the ways of doing things, but being able to see when it's a moment, when there's a moment, that moment of evolution, and being able to sort of lead through that and help others navigate through that and understand that. I think those are a couple of additional things, that have helped me in my career.
Excellent. I'm going to shift gears for a second here, Domenic, and I want to ask you a question, not about the skills that you got out of a liberal arts education, but what you didn't get, what might have been missing. And we've got a question from a student here that's kind of hitting at this point. She's asking, what kind of skills do you get in other kinds of education, like accounting, let's say, that you don't get in liberal arts? Are there technical skills or practical skills that you needed to acquire in addition to your liberal arts education as you headed into the banking sector?
So it's interesting you transition into that because I do think lifelong learning is a journey, and it's not something that starts and stops at any one point in time. And so, I think to marry sort of the educational and sort of the schooling with your sort of your work and your business, I do think that, speaking for myself, I think there are requirements once you're within work as it relates to sort of whether they be regulatory certifications and things of that nature that will and are required as part of either compliance to regulatory requirements or as part of jobs. And so it's not a, hey, you've gone to school and that's the end of it, and now you're going to go in and experience and work for a job and that's it. I think you have to continue to invest. And so, I'll tell you that, not only did I go from a liberal arts, I then went in and said, hey, this business thing is pretty cool. I'm going to do my Bachelor of Commerce. And then sort of last year said, hey, risk is something that I'm enjoying doing. Let me find the theory. And so just did a continuing education program through and received a certificate in risk management through York as well. And so for me, I can't say that there was something missing at the time, because I think it gave me the technical skills. It sparked the curiosity to continue to want to learn. Like if I look back at my program, communications, political science, and economy and economics are three of the programs that I undertook. You look at them, and some of them are quite structured in their approach, and some of them are not, are let's say called less structured. But when you merge and you marry those three disciplines and those three themes, I think you get to a better spot. And so as long as there's a curiosity to learn, a curiosity to acquire knowledge, a curiosity to ask questions and look to the answer, I think there is a never-ending opportunity. I do think for me, it was a bit of luck as well. I think you sort of fall into a job that continued to give me a runway to be successful. But I can't say hand on heart that I missed anything from my education in liberal arts, because I did think, because for me, it gave me the opportunity to really bring together various disciplines in a single spot and then overlay it. And then what I did is I was able to find commonalities and common themes that I was able to use in work and in the business sort of the space. And so for me, it worked out quite well. And so I don't have anything that says, hey, I was missing, because today, what we've learned over the last probably 24 to 30 months is there is a need for flexibility, both in the way we live our lives, we educate, we work. And I think the liberal arts program for me gave me that flexibility, because it allowed me to pull and do things in a number of different ways. And so I guess maybe I'm not the right person to ask, because I don't think that there was anything missing. I think it gives you everything you need, because it allows you to show that you've got an ability to acquire theory, translate that into a practicum, and then communicate it back to individuals. And I think whether you're in liberal arts, whether you're in law, whether you're in finance, wherever you are, those three skills are going to make you successful no matter what you do.
Yeah, and I think your answer was really good too, because it gave us some examples of different kinds of, I guess, postgraduate training that someone might undergo. It could be formal, as in doing another degree, or doing graduate studies or a law degree. It can also be within your workplace, right? So you could be doing on-the-job training. And this is very common in a number of enterprises where new opportunities emerge because you go into training on a new technology or a new tool that kind of leads you into a new set of skills that helps you move up in an organization, or maybe move into a completely different career. So those are all a bunch of different ways in which that kind of adaptability that you might get from a liberal arts education can enable you to kind of continue to upskill. Did anybody else do any kinds of postgraduate training they want to talk about, in terms of, going from your undergraduate education to your career, Ayesha?
Yeah, I did quite a bit on the professional side. So I was working in human resources. So I went and did my CHRL. And York has an HR program. They take you through all the courses, and then you can write the exam and get your designation. And then there's an experiential component to get the designation. I also took, a change management certification, project management certification. So you've got to blend, I would say it's just general language, the soft with the hard, I guess. You've got to figure out what those things are that you want to learn again. And I'll echo what Domenic said. It's not about anything being missing per se. It's about saying, okay, I'm equipped with this now. What is showing up in front of me and what is pulling me? Where do I want to go? And what do I need to learn to be able to sort of, get there and to be able to contribute in that space. So yeah, there's quite a few that I did. And out of interest as well, there's some unrelated things I've done. Like I have a certification in nutrition. That was just something I wanted to learn for myself, because it was, being able to mindfully eat and take care of your, nutrition is something that is a skill I never learned. So it's something that I, wanted to learn. So I went and I did that as well. So I would definitely ask anyone who's watching and who's in this process of figuring this out to not see things as gaps, but to really see things as sort of an ever evolving stream. And so it's like, what's next? And where do I want to expand? And then go and pursue those pieces.
I'm just mindful of the time, and I can see we're getting questions from the audience. So I want to make sure that we can give enough time to those questions. Okay, if we jump over to some of the audience questions now? All right. There was a question about connecting with any of the panelists over over LinkedIn, and I just want to make sure if everyone's okay with that. If people reach out to you over LinkedIn, are you guys okay with making connections with some of the students here?
Sure, I'm fine
Absolutely.
with
Excellent. And of course, it's a great way to start to build your networks. And that's really important for our students is these engagements with alumni are opportunities to start to make some of those connections because they may be curious about the fields that you're in. We've got a question here from Alberto about all the skills that you've mentioned that you developed through a liberal arts major are important, but it seems like employers want people who are ready to jump into certain roles right away and have certain skills. What would you recommend for students trying to bridge the gap from their undergraduate education where they might not have as much work experience or the specific skills that a particular role might demand?
that. So,
Angela.
I've been in many hiring capacities over the years, and I think that one of the things that I think people tend to undervalue is their soft skills. And right now in our business, what we do is we hire for attitude and train for skill. And that is just something that's very important. You know, we have a certain culture within our company, and we have certain values within our company, and it's more important that people align with who we are and what we're trying to create. And so I think that you don't need to worry so much about having specific skills unless you do want to be an accountant or if you want. And so, but if you're in the liberal arts faculty, it's really about understanding a lot of the skills that you have and just having a good attitude and being open to certain opportunities. And most jobs that you're probably interested in are the types of jobs where people are looking for people who are flexible, people who are smart, but willing to learn, who are open. And that has a lot of value is the attitude, because you can train anyone that has a great attitude. I would focus on the type of industry that you want to work in, one that fascinates you, one that you're passionate about. Because when you are in an interview situation or you're networking in that industry, it can be very clear that that passion is there. And that's something people want to work with passionate people. People want to work with people who want to learn. And it's easy to learn skills when you're working in a space that you're passionate about. And I personally, you know, I ended up working in the magazine industry, and I was passionate about magazines. I did end up going to Ryerson and doing a couple of simple courses, a fact-checking course, you know, but I had learned a lot of it on the job. It was almost just for my own confidence to realize, hey, I do know this stuff. And, you know, copy editing. And I was like, oh, I already really knew it. I learned a lot of that in the job I was already in. But it gave me more confidence to know that I was doing everything, you know, correctly. So yeah, I think you can always upgrade. You can always do things. You're not always, it's not always necessary, but there's a lot that you bring to the table. You just have to really value that. And even if it's not something that's considered a practical skill, we have soft skills that are amazing, people want.
Thank you. That's really important to emphasize. You know, obviously there are certain jobs that you might apply to that have very specific skills that are required. Accountant, truck driver, forklift driver, I don't know, right? But there are a lot of skills that you'll have as a liberal arts graduate that may not be as obvious, as especially as you step out into you know, an environment in which you're competing for jobs and applying and interviewing. Alessandro, did you want to add something to this question?
Yeah, just real quick, I know people talk about this in the kind of professional collective, but it's really important to have your own personal brand, you know, like what you view yourself as, what kind of professional do you view yourself as, but also how you'd like others to view your brand, right? So there's a nice sort of summary section in LinkedIn. A good exercise is kind of filling that out. If you were to write like a paragraph about yourself, what would that look like? You know, it's really easy and quick these days to just create a Squarespace website or something like that, and you know, list your projects, list your hobbies, and some of the cool stuff you may have worked on that could be analogous to the kind of job you want. It doesn't have to be exact, but when I got my job at that customer service help desk thing, I used an analogy in my interview about working customer service at a grocery store. So it was sort of a high-end grocery store, but it was still customer service. It's just the sort of work was different. So I think working by analogy is super important if you have sort of an empty resume or one that isn't as built out.
Thanks. And did anybody else want to add to this? I think this is a really important question. It's one of the, kind of high anxiety for students who are in their senior year getting close to graduation is how do you make that leap into a career? And if there's a skills gap, how can you fill it in? Or what skills might you have that might not be as obvious? And how do you highlight that to a prospective employer? Not sure if there's any experience of what you've seen in terms of hiring in your own organizations.
There's nothing I would add, Sean. I would echo what Alessandro and Angela said. The only thing I would leave this audience with is don't undervalue the skills you have and you bring to the table, because in many ways, there are going to be professions that are very siloed in the sense that everybody has the same approach, the same thought process, the same perspective on things. I think anybody that may not necessarily fit the mold, but brings a different perspective, gets the collective to a higher ground. And so, I think that's the only comment I will leave this group with, is to say things you do in impacting and influence your colleagues, whether they be on group assignments or on influencing them on how to sort of debate a topic, are things that are going to be transferable into the business environment. But do not underestimate the skills that you've been able to acquire through schooling and how those translate, because being successful and getting a degree is something you should shouldn't take lightly, and those are skills that are going to make a difference to any employer. Doesn't matter where you are.
Especially completing the degree
Yeah.
is really key. I mean, that in and of itself is a pretty strong signal of the kind of coworker you might be or employee. There's a couple of questions here. I'm going to try and fold them together. They're still in this same area about breaking into a job market. One question is about whether doing a master's degree or other kinds of postgraduate credentialing is really important in the workforce today, and that'll obviously be sector specific. And then a similar question is about standing out in a pool of applicants. So a master's degree might be a part of that. I'm not sure, but I wonder if anybody would want to talk about what you see in your sector as kind of expectations, or what makes candidates stand out. Is it additional postgraduate training? Is it the way you present yourself in an online application? See if anybody wants to jump in on that.
I'll get us started on this one. Having spent, 15 plus years in human resources, I'll say, look, you got to start somewhere. I think it's admirable to have a vision and to have, dreams and goals and ambitions of the levels to which we want to rise and the places we want to go. But I think it's also about having patience with ourselves and giving ourselves a chance by taking the first step. So I think that's just a way of working with ourselves as we're out in the world, looking to, find these opportunities and looking to create these opportunities. I think Angela said something that was very important. I've done a lot of hiring. I've done executive search, and certainly, yes, the experience matters, but so does other things like, your ability to demonstrate how you show up in stressful situations. So a lot of the interviewing that happens nowadays is behavioral. So you may not have the position title on your resume, but you may have had experiences that really translate well to what the need may be. The other piece is that the world of work has evolved. There are jobs that used to exist, 10 years ago that are sort of, kind of waning out a little bit, and there's new emergent areas where there's quite a lot of space to play. So there's also an opportunity for us to look at what those bigger macro trends are, and to really expand our view of what is possible. And then what Alessandro said about, the way that we show up, the way that we present ourselves, it is very important that we understand what it is that we want to do, and then understand what is required in order to be successful at it. And you can do that by talking to people who have done it. You can find where those opportunities are, where there's still a gap. Having worked in HR, I'll tell you, finding good talent, finding people who are capable, finding people who are willing, who are creative, who will bring a fresh perspective to things is always very important. So, it's natural and normal when we come across situations where we are perhaps, not noticed because we don't have certain things listed on a resume. But that's okay. That's part of the process. The key is to just keep learning from all of that and see, okay, what is it that they want to see? Do I have it in any of the experiences that I've had? And if so, I must highlight it. I must present it. And if not, what can I do to kind of bring that experience in? And certainly that can be brought in through education. That's a stream. A lot of postgraduate programs may come with placements or an experiential opportunity that can help you sort of get or break through into a certain space, give you a bit of a community and a network through those opportunities. And I know York does offer, there's an experiential education area, which started when I was still at York, but I know it's expanded quite significantly. So it's also looking at what is available to you within your own community of where you are. You may not have to go outside of it. And then if you do need to go outside, sometimes those referrals and those connections, having the right conversations with the right people and having clarity and purpose of your own, those are ways that can help you navigate, kind of chart that path for yourself.
I'm just going to put a link in the chat for anybody in the audience here for information about our experiential education office in the faculty. There's information there about different programs that offer field placements, as well as our internship program. That's another piece to this question about, where do you start? How do you start to build those skills? There are some opportunities during the course of your undergraduate education where you can start to get your foot in the door in what you would hope will be your career if you want to explore it and learn a little bit more about it. Okay, there's more questions coming. These are all super interesting. Susie asked this question right at the beginning and I didn't get it to Alessandro. Susie wanted to know, if you were doing it all over again, would you start at college and go to university, or would you start at university first?
I think it's very much an individual journey. I don't think in the end it matters. For me, I kind of built my resume with the co-ops found in the diploma that I received. And then after I found a full-time job, I did a mixture of full-time and part-time at York. So I think I would have made it work either way, depending on, which I did first. It's all just kind of, what do you desire, right? For me, it was, I had to experience the university world and I would have done that either way. But I think for the most part, it's like, we talk about following our passion. I think we need to follow like what makes us happy and follow the things that don't feel like work, right? So I think that will lead to the most success, and you'll find that doors will just open. And also I think cause and effect is something we tend to not highlight so much, but when we follow things that don't feel like work, cause and effect is very powerful. Just putting our hand up for things and always kind of volunteering and trying new things, it always just leads into something usually pretty great, right? Because you have a foundation of just enjoyment.
Yeah, and that relationship between college and university can be quite individual, as you said. So, for every student who goes from college to university in Ontario, we've got another student who goes from university to college, right? So you complete your bachelor's degree and then you do a diploma program after, or you come in via a diploma program and then do your bachelor's degree after the college program. So there's lots of examples of that working both ways. A couple of comments here, Angela, for you. I've been to many of your restaurants and even worked at Chubby's for a short period of time, and wanted to say what you've created is incredible. The food, the vibe, you've brought Caribbean culture to King Street. You rock. So some nice comments there for you, Angela.
Thank you.
Okay, really interesting question came in before the event, actually, in the pre-event questions, and this might be the one we have to wrap up on as we're running out of time. But a student wanted to know, they sort of said here that there feels like there's a sentiment that an arts degree is less than doing a non-arts degree, like a professional degree or something. So how do we as arts students or arts degree holders convince other people, especially our parents, that there's value to the degree that we got? I think you've heard a little bit today from the panelists about what that value is, but if there's any advice of what people might be able to communicate to others who might be skeptical about the value of a liberal arts education, is there any advice for those students here? Ayesha.
I think it's what you make of it.
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't value something, no one else will. When I was studying philosophy and I went and did graduate work at Queen's in philosophy, people would ask me, why are you doing this? Like, you can't get a promotion with this education. And, you know, in those moments, it was important for me to know my why and what I was getting to it and what I was going to bring to the world of work, because of what I'm learning. And that's how you turn, that's how you create opportunity. I think there will always be people who will see things differently. And I think it's important to consider different perspectives, but it's also important to know your why and then, and then living it. I have zero regrets. I love the title. I have absolutely zero regrets about my liberal arts education. I think it's really brought me a lot of joy, and not just work. It's brought me a lot of joy and abundance. And I'll say that if it's something that calls to you, if it's something that speaks to you, then you have to trust that. And the way you turn, the way you turn the doubt or the concern of those whom love you and with whom you interact into confidence is by having confidence of your own and being able to say, I can work with this and I can demonstrate that and I can live that. For me, that was certainly true.
Yeah, sorry, Dominic, go ahead.
Sorry, one final comment. I'll make it short. I would agree with everything that Ayesha said. I think the only additional piece I would add is it gives you optionality. I think if you go in thinking you want to be an accountant, you're going to be very specific in the courses, the education, and at some point you may realize, hey, I really don't like this. And so now you have to retrench. Whereas in a liberal arts, you can actually do a whole bunch of things, satisfy the curiosity of knowledge, and then pick where you want to go. You can look at the panel. We are all very different in terms of what our liberal arts background was. Our paths crossed at some point in terms of the sort of the business and the activities we did, but we're all different, and it gives you simply that optionality that you want in life. You don't want to go down a path and if that path stops, then there's the end of it. You want to be able to have multiple outlets to be able to sort of experience multiple things and give you options to do lots of stuff. And so it's the advice I give to my kids. It's the advice I'd give to anybody, is to say, give yourself options, because you never want to go down a single path.
All right, and we are at 1:30, and the time has gone by really fast. I think I'll close out this last piece to say, Ayesha's point about confidence, I think, is really important, and it's part of why we do these events as well. We do these also for our students in our professional programs as well, and I think it's important to remember that many of the questions we see from students in liberal arts programs are actually very similar to questions that we see from students in professional programs. Our accounting students have questions about how they translate their undergraduate education into a career, and questions about what kind of postgraduate training you need and how you stand out in an applicant pool and how you build a professional network. These are actually common across all disciplines at the university, and it's part of the challenge of completing your education and then moving on to your career after graduation. What I hope that you get out of an event like this is to get to meet and hear from some graduates who graduated with liberal arts degrees and to see what their career journeys looked like, and to see some of the diversity of the outcomes for alumni from our university. Of course, we've been interviewing and speaking with alumni for the past year or so, and we've got a ton of videos up on the Faculty of Liberal Arts and Professional Studies YouTube channel, where you can go and watch some of the other interviews with other alumni, including the 4 today, who will be recorded here and posted up on that site. Couple of announcements before we close out. I wanted to thank all of our panelists here. Thank you, Alessandro. Thank you, Angela. Thank you, Ayesha. And thank you, Domenic, for sharing your stories with us and providing valuable advice to our students about your liberal arts educations and your careers. Please visit the LA&PS website for more information about our upcoming webinars, and register for our next webinar, which is coming up on February 8th at 12:30 p.m. It's Moving Forward, How Our Alumni Are Strengthening Black Communities. You can find the registration link in the chat, which will get posted momentarily here if it's not already there. And more information about upcoming Moving Forward webinars can be found on the LA&PS website under Moving Forward. Thank you so much for joining us, and we hope to see you at the next event. Goodbye, everybody.